For 46 years, I have been a student of prophecy, particularly Daniel and Revelation. I blame those 46 years on Seventh-day Adventists. In 1956, 55, 56, I read a book entitled The Great Controversy, 600 plus pages, paperback, no pictures, no images, just cold, hard ink on white paper. And I saw the book in a Seventh-day Adventist grade school on a shelf by itself. The Great Controversy. Oh, I wonder what that's about. I was not an Adventist. Now, a lot of preachers and a lot of evangelists and a lot of Bible workers and some relatives had been working 24/7 to talk me into being an Adventist. But I hadn't found anything that would advance me in my Christian experience from my Baptist background, Presbyterian background. I hadn't found anything that said, you need to know this and you need to do this. So I picked this book up on the shelf, the only book on the shelf, and I took it home. You have to understand, I'm a teenager. I took it home and I read it in 3 days and nights. 600 and whatever pages, 680 pages or thereabouts. That book brought conviction to my life, my mind, my heart. As a matter of fact, the day after I finished reading the book, the local pastor who had pulled every trick out of his hat he could to get me into the Adventist faith and the Adventist church and so forth, came walking through the school, and I got up from my desk and I walked out the door and I said, "Elder, I've made up my mind I want to be baptized." The guy went speechless. Finally he said, you've made up your mind? I said, "Yes, I don't need Bible studies." Okay. That was my introduction, an Adventist introduction to Daniel and Revelation. It's a long story even before that time in my life, but the images in Daniel of terrible beasts and terrible horns and all these kinds of things just gripped me in my imagination. What is this all about? Why would God put this kind of stuff in the Bible? And it's been a growing, progressive experience for 40 plus years. For 30 to 36 years, I have been urging friends like you from coast to coast and from beyond the coast and beyond and beyond and beyond. Hundreds of thousands of folk, I've said, the book of Daniel is for our day. Now you would think that would be good news, but there are a lot of people who are turned off by that. And here's why: because the church had its own definition, its own interpretation of what these images were all about. And I had to study and I had to grow and I had to pray and I had to try and I had to go down this road and sketch it out and back up and say, that doesn't work. There's something wrong here. And several years ago, actually 30 plus years ago, in Southern California on a Sabbath with 12 to 1,500 people present, I said, I want to open the book of Daniel, present tense, with you. And I got about 20, 30 minutes into the first presentation of the day, and 300 to 500 of the 1,200 plus got up and walked out. It was a shocking experience. I thought they would want to know what Daniel had to do with our day. But there are preconceived ideas and opinions. It's not unique to Adventists. People are resistant to change. I'm not. Now, if you believe that, human beings are by nature resistant to change. Why? Because we come into this world crying, screaming, kicking, and virtually our entire lives are spent trying to get security. We buy insurance. We make sure we eat the right food. We do all the things to make sure we are on solid ground. And then some preacher shows up and said, "Oh, you got it backward." I have said this many times, but I want to say it under different circumstances and maybe different words with you for a few moments here. The book of Daniel is about the future. Prophecy is about things that are yet to come. We, as a people, as a church, as a movement, are teaching prophecy, history as prophecy. We're finding all the answers back yonder. And if you convince the church and the church members that it's all done, then there's no excitement left. There's nothing left to discover. A few months ago, Judy was going through the first stages and all of these things that have happened in the last 6 to 8 months. Judy's going through the first stages, and I'm home. I'm not spending any time in the office. I'm home. And in between, bring me water, bring me my pill, bring whatever in between, I'm rereading Daniel. And I saw some things that I had never seen before. And you have to understand, I can pretty well repeat the book from memory. That's nice, that's good. But there are levels of understanding. I'm not going to say interpretation. There are levels of understanding. And I began to see some things that I had never seen before. As many times as I had gone through it, over it, past it, around it, could read it to you, could tell it to you from memory, I never saw some of the things that we're going to talk about here today. Once I saw it, instead of having a calming effect on my mind, it troubled me. Well, this is one of the things I discovered right here. Right here. Now I'm going to tell you this is not about politics. This is about prophecy. You must understand that President Trump has rewritten the laws regarding someone in my position being able to discuss these things now without fear of the government stepping in and saying, "You're a nonprofit. We own you. You can't say that. We're shutting you down." I've got about 6 weeks of freedom so far. I don't want to talk about politics. I want to talk about prophecy. And I want to put some of these things together in such a way that when I began to see them, I wouldn't voice everything I was seeing. It was almost more than I could handle, much less trying to bounce it off of somebody else. But there was something about Daniel chapter 4 that grabbed me. You're this head of gold. And I had just been reading some of the internet gossip about Trump having his hair dyed. And the rumors are, I don't know how true or not, doesn't matter, but the rumors are on some occasions he had actual gold flakes put into his hair as well. That may be just fake news. I don't know. Let's see if this works. These are the words of Jesus. Every city or house divided against itself shall not stand. Every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation. You and I need to get America in the crosshairs. We need to understand that there has never been a nation, there has never been an empire, there has never been a time in human history like this time, like this nation. We are the great nation. You are the head of gold. You're the great tree. You are. It began to become clear to me that God would not talk about Babylon and Medo-Persia and all of these historical nations and people and events in the past and come to the end of time and say nothing about the most powerful nation, the greatest wealth, the greatest, and by the way, the only truly Protestant nation on the planet. And it's not a Protestant nation anymore, but at least we have some, and under this man's tutelage, we're able to say it freely now. No exceptions. I don't need to tell you that this nation is divided. It is divided. It is passionately and violently divided. It is financially, physically divided. There are things that are coming across the evening news that just bring tears to my eyes. I'm watching the death of my nation. I'm watching the demise of the most powerful nation and people ever in history. And it is coming apart quickly. And it doesn't matter who says or tries to calm the waters. They're boiling. Every kingdom. Who said this? Come on. How many times did he say it? When something is doubled, that has significance. More so when Jesus is speaking. I'm bringing you to chapter 4 of Daniel and verse 17. This matter is by the decree of the watchers and the demand by the word of the holy ones. We're going to parse this. We're going to take it apart in a moment. To the intent that the living may know that the Most High rules in the kingdom of men and gives it to whomsoever he will and sets up over it the basest of men. It was reading that, and it's repeated 4 times in Daniel 4. It was reading that I said, that's Donald Trump. If I ever saw or heard, that's Donald Trump. So let's parse this. This matter. What is this matter? First of all, are you aware who wrote Daniel chapter 4? Nebuchadnezzar. Was he a great Christian? Was he a good man? I mean, he's the one that surrounded Jerusalem, tore down the walls, destroyed Solomon's glorious temple, took all the gold back to his house, and made slaves out of 1.5 million to 2 million people. I don't think of Nebuchadnezzar in pleasant terms. And yet, of all the people God is going to favor with some knowledge, some understanding of the future. He chooses Nebuchadnezzar. Makes no sense. Makes no sense. This matter is about the green tree, the great tree. And we're going to discover it's about the great tree and the guy who thinks he's gold from head to foot. This matter is by the decree of the watchers. Are you familiar with this term? These are the timekeepers. These are the clock watchers. The guys who came looking for Jesus from the east. They're watchers. We have seen. We watch the heavens. And all the things that we have heard about through our ancestors are taking place. Where is he that is to be born King of the Jews? There's a decree of the watchers. They're not down here like the wise men. They're up there. This matter is by the decree of the watchers, and the demand or command by the word of the holy ones. Tell me who's holy.
Jesus is Father.
Is this plural or singular? See, we read, but we just go too quickly through these things. The demand or command is the command of the holy ones. Follow me. To the intent, this is the purpose, to the intent that the living may know. Why does it address the living?
People living at that time.
It's the people living at this time. At this time, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men. Now, we have to back up just a little bit right here. The disciples said, Master, teach us how to pray. Okay, this is how you pray. Our Father, which art in heaven. We're talking about down here, kingdom of men. Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. From where? Heaven. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done where? Here we are. This is a pronouncement from heaven that the prayer of Jesus is going to be answered in time. The Most High rules not simply up there, but in the kingdom of men. Does it appear to you that God is always in control down here? Be honest. Now, God is going to exercise His righteous choice, and He's going to give it to whomsoever He will. I think there's probably several million people in this country who don't want Nebuchadnezzar to run the country. Now that's what we got. That's who we got, because God says, I'm going to put the basest of men in control. You wait till we dig this one out. He's going to set up over it the basest of men. Way back. 1977, 78, first invitation that came. Would you come talk to us about prophecy? This is what I drew on the board. One umbrella with a starting point and an ending point, and finally decided this is 30, 40 years ago, finally decided that this is the 3.5 years spoken of in Daniel and Revelation. It's repeated and repeated and repeated. And so I fleshed it out like this, that this starts with the National Sunday Law. Now, I did not choose that. That's what occurred to me as a moving point, a transition point in end-time prophecy. Adventist version. I put National Sunday Law. 3.5 years and Christ will return. Now I'm going to be very honest and candid with you. If you get up in front of a bunch of Adventists, I don't care if they're on the other side of the world, and you say National Sunday Law and Second Coming, you've got the crowd. And the crowds were there. And the crowds listened. I'll tell you how it went. I have a file in my office of hand-drawn crayon, sometimes chalk, but crayon images. And virtually every one, I have a thick file of these, virtually every one of them was handed to me in a seminar from New York to Sydney, Australia, to you name it, was handed to me at the end of the day by a 5-year-old child. I drew this, and every one of these, without exception, is some guy standing up front with his hands up and a chalkboard in the background. 5 years of age. Crowds would come and they would bring children. No, that's a no, 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 no. We don't want crying babies. They might have begun crying early on, but things went silent. And people would sit for hours and hours and hours. They're not listening to a person. They're listening to a message that has something about it that strikes the heart, strikes the mind, and says, listen, pay attention. Now that's where I started, and things change. About 20 years ago, maybe 25 now, with more study, I decided that there would be 7 last years. And this was upsetting to some folk. You can understand why. I thought the world was going to end in 3.5 years, and now you're telling me it's 7. 7 last years, and of course, this made changes in things. So I'm going to back up, and I want you to see this. There was a transition. We went from 3.5 years to the possibility of 7 last years, including the 3.5 years. But we have to change the formula. And so instead of a National Sunday Law, we discovered that the Moed, do you know what the Moed are? What that means? It's Hebrew. It means times and seasons. It means watchers, the stuff of watchers. The Moed. We discovered that it has something to do with the daily to be taken away. And of course, the end is the end when Jesus comes to receive his own. We discovered that there was 1,260 days, 1,290 days, 3.5 years, 40 and 2 months. And what does all this mean? $18, 24 months ago, 6, 8, 10 months ago, we extended this again. Daniel chapter 4. And I added 12 months. Oh, my phone rang and rang. It still rings. I just don't understand how you get that. Well, let's talk about it. 12 months is how long? 1 year, 7 years. Ooh, that sounds like a presidential arrangement. More recently, I have concluded that the 12 months breaks, where Jesus introduces the beginning of sorrows. See, the disciples came to him and they said, we're so proud of the temple. Look at it. It is glowing like a precious stone in the sun. Jesus says, it's coming down. Oh, no. Yes, it's coming down. And it will not just be an ordinary day when it comes down. Every stone you see is coming down, not one left standing atop another. So they said, this must be the end of the world. How can we know when this is going to be? Do you remember what Jesus said in answer to their question? Be careful, be aware. This is what you're going to see. This is what you're going to hear. There's going to be deceptions aplenty. There's going to be war and rumors of war. There's going to be famine. There's going to be pestilence, which is in the Greek plagues or plagues. There's going to be rampant deadly diseases, famine, pestilence. Nation against nation and kingdom against kingdom. Now Matthew and Mark say, and there shall be earthquakes in diverse places. Luke went around and asked everybody he could find who had heard these things and repeated these things. And he said, I'm going to add a word. Great earthquakes. Not simply earthquakes, but great earthquakes. In many places, different places. So let's get on with this, and I want to remind you of Daniel chapter 2. Daniel chapter 2 is the first dream that was given to there are all kinds of saints that God could be informing. He could send you and me dreams. And what's this Nebuchadnezzar bit all about? So Nebuchadnezzar has a dream. Daniel is already captive and led away to Babylon with his friends. And he is chosen by God and by the king to bring about an interpretation of this dream. And in verse 28 of Daniel chapter 2, this is what Daniel says, O king, live forever. Could not the soothsayers, magicians, and astrologers show the king the dream? But there is a God in heaven that revealeth secrets and maketh known to the king what shall be in 330 BC. Are you listening? Just the language, just the context alone is all that one needs to know where this dream belongs. It does not belong to history. It belongs to the future. It is going to become present truth. That's how it's written. As a matter of fact, as you go through the book of Daniel, you will see present truth each time over and over and over again. Latter days. And finally, in chapter 12, which is the last chapter of Daniel's book, the angel Michael says to him, Daniel, shut up the words and seal your book even till the It's locked up. It's sealed up. It may be read but not comprehended. That's where we've been. You, me, churches, that's where we've been. I believe that this guy with golden hair is an announcement to the watchers, to the wise, it says in Daniel 12. The wise will understand. In Daniel 2, you are this head of gold. But after you, you're not the end of this matter. But after you, another shall rise, inferior to your rule, your kingdom, your authority, as silver is inferior to gold. Would you like to see it? There he is, right there. That's an actual photograph. Gray hair. An insult. They don't put that on the evening news, by the way, right now. I want you to see something. This is the gist. This is the heart. This is the heart of the dream. You're this head of gold, but you ain't going to be around forever. Now, I could spend time in Daniel 3. That's the fiery furnace. But I want to come to Daniel 4, and I'm coming to Daniel 4 because the same guy is being given another dream. And it is so impressive. It has made such an impression on him that he actually opens Daniel chapter 4 by saying, I'm writing this. I am addressing this to you. I am writing this. Because the great God of Daniel, the God who controls, the God who rules, has given me another dream. And there's a great tree. I submit to you that the head of gold, Babylon, represents the United States of America in the end. I submit to you that the great tree and the description of the great tree represents the United States of America at the end. You are this great tree. It spreads until it nearly fills the earth. The beasts of the field are fed, the birds of the air are fed, and all men are fed. The great tree, you are this great tree, O king. The great tree is cut down. Now, according to the vision or the dream given to the king, it is at the end of 12 months that this tree is cut down. I need to back up and get the lion out of the picture. The great tree is cut down. What is the occasion of cutting down the great tree? What does it mean to be cut down? Cut it down. Cut off its limbs, its branches. Strip it of its leaves. Its fruit scatter. Let the beasts of the field and the birds of the air flee. And let the men who have been feasting and flourishing under the tree, let them flee. What was the occasion of cutting it down? Something happens at the end of 12 months. I was flourishing in my palace. And by the way, I looked up palace in the original right there. It says, the great house of the people. I was flourishing in my palace. And I said, is not this great Babylon? Let's make America what?
Great.
Is not this great Babylon which I have built? And at that very instant, if you read it, at that very instant, word was given to the watchers, and they were commanded by the holy ones to cut down or hew down the tree, break off its branches, scatter its fruit. 12 months. Wow. I want to go on. We're going to expand on this. In Daniel chapter 7, we have a transition. Here we have two dreams. In Daniel 7 and Daniel 8, where we're going, we have two visions. The two dreams are given to an earthling, to Nebuchadnezzar. The two visions are given to Daniel. So in Daniel chapter 7, I saw four great beasts. I saw the four winds of heaven striving upon the great sea. Four beasts, four great beasts, diverse one from another, came up out of the sea. The first was like a lion with eagle's wings. Had the heart of a lion. But something happened. Something happened. A command was given to pluck the eagle wings from the lion and pull the lion's heart out and put the heart of a man in. The eagle wings are plucked. The lion's heart is plucked. You can check that out in the original if you want, but it's broken, shattered, cut asunder. I submit to you that this and this and this are talking about the same power. And let's look at number 4. In Daniel chapter 8, we have the ram with two horns. And we've been through this so many times in the last 20, 30 years together. The ram with two horns represents, according to Gabriel, Iran and Iraq. Used to say Iraq and Iran. There was a time it was Iraq first and Iran second. But the second horn grows up, displaces the greatness or the power or the strength or the authority of the first horn. Still there. So Daniel sees in vision this ram pushing, bullying, and nobody can stop him. Somebody's feeding him plane loads of cash. Oh. I watched, and this ram is pushing, and he's pushing south and north and west, and he makes someone angry westward. And what I saw, Daniel says, as he describes the picture, he says, I saw a rough goat. Some translations read a he-goat, strong. Well, how can we identify this rough goat? Well, first of all, he's in the west. And when he gets angered and comes, he comes across the face of the whole earth, and he touches not the ground as he comes. And on the side of his plane it says B2, you know. All right, I'm watching you. I'm looking for you. Let's go back to a fellow by the name of Joseph. He's a good guy. Good guys always pay. And Joseph paid for sins that he did not commit. I mean, he was foolish to sit at the breakfast table and tell Dad and his brothers, all of whom were older than himself. He was young. He was a greenhorn. He was inexperienced. And so he sat at the breakfast table and said, I had a dream last night. All of you were bowing down to me. And they were happy at the breakfast table. Now, all of this is played out as you keep reading the story. It's recorded in Genesis. All of this is played out. The brothers have gone off to take care of the flocks. They're way away from home. Dad wants a report. He takes baby brother Joseph, and he says, I want you to go find your brothers. I want you to take grilled cheese sandwiches to them. And I want you to bring me a report. Boy, what a report. It took 30 plus years for the report to get back. Did you hear what the brothers said as they saw Joseph off in a distance? Yonder comes that dreamer. Joseph paid for the sins of his brothers. I don't know who Joseph represents, do you? I mean, it appears that all is lost. As a matter of fact, the record is, and Joseph was 30 years of age when he began to serve Pharaoh. You know the story, don't you? He's locked up in prison. Egyptian prisons are wonderful places to behold. And God gives Nebuchadnezzar, Pharaoh. God gives this pagan heathen king dreams. We need to have a conversation with God when we get to heaven. He needs some advice. You should choose better folk. So he gives Pharaoh a dream. And then he gives Pharaoh a second dream. And he won't let Pharaoh sleep. He can't find peace of mind. I've got to know what this means. Well, there's a guy in jail over there, in prison over there, and he interprets dreams. Bring him. Now, the present end of that story is that Joseph explains to the king, you've had two dreams. And because the dream was doubled to the king, are you listening? Come on, I want you to finish the verse. Because the thing was doubled to the king, therefore it is what? Sure, it's certain. This is what I found just a few days ago. How many dreams? How many visions? Double. Just double is enough. But double means what? This is the focal point. There are points, but this is the focal point of the book of Daniel. This great power, there's never been anything like it in human terms. This great power is coming down. And you and I shall be so glad that we are not living in this great power when it comes down. From dizzying heights to groveling in the grass with the rest of the donkeys out there. God is trying to tell the world, when you see this, the time has come. The time, I believe with everything in me that this time has come. We are weeks and months at best from the United States of America bankrupting. Now, we'll show you that in the noon recess. And it's not one or two people. It's scores of experts, historians, financial people, political powers. They're all saying we're coming down. Why can they say that? Because the lesson of history is any nation, any kingdom, any house divided against itself cannot stand, shall not stand. It's a decree of the watchers and the holy ones. Now, one of the DVDs that I'm going to give you today is called The Blessed Curse. I shared it several years ago. That's the thing about this material. It's never out of date. The Blessed Curse. And when you get home, I want you to watch it. First one. The Blessed Curse. This is about to happen. So let's go on here. And I've introduced this section with this headline, Pure Guesswork. This is my disclaimer. Pure guesswork. Charles Wheeling discusses Daniel chapter 4, and at the time we're picking it up, there's only 9 months left until a collapse. Those 4 powers representing the collapse of the great power. In October, before the election took place, I came under conviction that I know who's going to win. The golden-haired kid. The non-politician politician. The billionaire. That's who's going to win. The guy with the head of gold. And the head is not just on the outside. It's what's inside as well. He thinks in big golden terms. So back in October of 2016, last year, before the election is to take place in November, I said, I know who's going to win. And I made my first prediction that Donald Trump is going to win this election. We're going to have Trump for president. And I said so. I went on record. And then I said this, I sure hope it's not true. I hope everything I'm going to say, everything that I think, everything that I am surmising is wrong, incorrect, and it's not going to happen. I'll be the happiest man on the block. I don't care what people call me. If this stuff is true, if this stuff is real, if there is any present truth in it, whoa, we've got 12 months. So the election took place the 8th of November. And of course, everyone in the country thought Donald Trump is going to win. Did he become president November 8th? No, he did not. But Trump, contrary to public opinion, won. Good guess. The inauguration date was January 20 of 2017. Trump, contrary to public opinion, and it's still opinion, became president. There was joy in the streets. No, there was rioting in the streets. Yeah. Trump, contrary to public opinion, became president. Good guess. I submit to you that the 12 months began right there. Right there. Now, the financial world was just ripping and roaring as soon as Trump was voted to be president and inaugurated. Rumors from everywhere said he's going to crash the markets. You see, he's going to bring us all down. Trump markets, contrary to public opinion, went I said, the markets are not going to go down. They're going to go up. They're going to go up, 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 up. Because this guy has a head of good guess. More predictions. We're moving to March. We've got 9 months up here. And in March, at the end, close of March, I said, we're going to start having increasing tensions between the USA and Iran. Almost to the day, the news began heating about relations between the Trump administration and Iran. We're going to put new and harsh sanctions on. We're going to do this. We're going to stop them from their nuclear experimentation and on and on and on. Increasing tensions was my prediction at the midpoint in March. Increasing tensions between the USA and Iran. And I know you probably don't follow the news every day, but I do. Good guess. One, two, three, four. We're 3 or 4 months into this. 3 months from 12 is how many? So we posed the question in March, 9 months to go, is it possible that the United States of America, the mightiest, most powerful, wealthiest nation in the history of mankind, could be broke in 9 months? From March, we're going to drop 2 more months. We go May and June. Only 7 months until a collapse. It's a question mark. I said, if there's anything to this at all, there's going to be a change in the circulating currency. That's what Ellen White wrote 100 years ago, change in the circulating currency. This is not of the devising of God. It is a device of Satan for the last days.
Where is it?
Testimonies to Ministers 3:31. I said, watch, May, June, there will be a change in the U.S. circulating currency. We're going to have some new money, guys. This is not of the devising of God, the changing of the circulating currency. It is one of the devil's schemes. I thought those who believed the truth would not be deceived in the least degree. Now there's a caution that she puts in here. She says, I thought God's people would keep themselves aloof from political entanglements. That's why I went out of my way to say to you, this is not about politics. This is about prophecy. We have to be very careful taking sides. My suggestion is the gravity of this event will hardly be recognized by the majority, but bankers, statesmen, and historians will understand this event will, I believe, be a global announcement of the new world order, the rise of the beast of Daniel chapter 7. 10 plus years ago, the international bankers and politicians concluded that we cannot, as a world of business, we cannot continue to do business as usual. Why not? Because the up and coming economies of the world saw that the United States was giving people paper money, just ink on paper, and calling it money. But automobiles and computers and all the rest of it is real stuff. And they told the United States in no uncertain terms, we're not going to take your funny money anymore. You gotta, it's gold, silver, it's real. So the terminology that was chosen and is used to this point right now is that the world, the nations of the world in international commerce must deal in asset-backed currencies. Asset-backed currencies. Asset-backed, what does that mean? Gold, silver, oil, corn. If you're going to do $300 billion worth of business with me, a la China to the U.S., in a year, I want gold. I want silver. I want oil. Ooh, I really shouldn't open my mouth on that, but I probably will before the day is over. Asset-backed currency. So 10 years ago, this decision was made at the World Bank, the Bank for International Settlements, the BIS it's called in Switzerland. On and on and on, the decision was made, and votes were taken among the nations. The United States very reluctantly said, we will sign on, we'll go back, we'll deal with Congress, and we'll agree. Liar, liar, pants on fire. We refused to do what we told the rest of the world we would do for 10 years. 10 years. Things got hotter and hotter under the collar. I mean, if you really knew what was flying around behind closed doors, you'd faint and fall over. Well, the United States was pushed at the annual Davos meeting, Davos, Switzerland. The United States was pushed. And to add to the push, they sent the Pope over here to speak to Congress and say, pay your bills. Now, you thought it was just a good guy flying around. The world has united itself against us, U.S. Are you listening? They have told us in no uncertain terms, we're shutting you out. We're not going to do business with you anymore. You're talking Walmart. You're talking Amazon. You're talking all the department stores. You're talking about all the stuff we do and we buy on credit. And our credit ain't no good because our money ain't no good. And so it was decided just a few weeks ago, it was agreed upon a few weeks ago, that on this date, we will demand asset-backed currencies for anyone and everyone who is joining international trade. What?
What date is that?
Well, I should have looked it up and remembered, but just a few weeks ago, China announced to the world that they were going gold-backed. All right? Russia announced we're going. India announced. Brazil announced. The BRICS countries announced. It's gone now. And the United States has to put up or shut up. The party is over. So I'm predicting, I'm guessing, I'm predicting that before June is over, you and I and the world will see a new currency. Some say it'll be called a USTN, a new U.S. Treasury note, to take the place of the, anyhow. My prediction is that before May and June are over, there will be a change in the circulating currency. We invaded Iraq. We have spent $1 to $3 trillion over there. Still spending. We didn't have $1 to $3 trillion. But what we did was announce to the Iraqis that you've got oil in the ground and you're going to pay us back. You listening? You're going to pay us back for setting you free. And so it was discussed in the highest levels of the United Nations and the powers that be. It was discussed that we will allow the United States of America to print new Iraqi currency. It was decided that the United States would print the new Iraqi currency. The U.S. Treasury would print the currency of another nation. And we will allow you to print X number of trillion dinar. Trillion. Trillion. Well, the French became furious and said, no, you invaded, but you're not the only one who's going to print dinar. Saddam owes us billions of dollars that he didn't pay because you blew him up. So we're going to print dinar too. And the world powers that be said, okay, we'll allow you to print 2 billion. They were still going at 20 plus billion. Trillion, pardon me. Okay, so they're printing money. How does that help us out? Well, we're going to back the Iraqi currency with oil, proven oil reserves in the ground. So theirs will be asset-backed currency. Okay? So they've got something really behind theirs. And by the way, while we have been in the process of warring in Iraq, gold in the ground was discovered. Enough gold to back up. So the Iraqi currency is not only backed by oil, but it's going to be backed by precious metals and other discoveries. So let me get you to a point so you understand how this game is played. And it's a game. Their currency, which has been worth nothing for 10 years because we invaded and tore the place up, their currency is going to become one of the most solid asset-backed currencies in the world. Well, what good does that do us? Well, because we're going to get several $1 trillion out of them. Well, how are we going to do that? We're going to take some of the trillions of dollars, dinars, pardon me, that we printed for them, and we're just going to put them in our banks. And their asset-backed currency means our currency is asset-backed. It's a game. It's a shell game. So the Chinese 6 to 8 weeks ago announced to the world, our yuan, renminbi, is gold-backed. And what they were doing were they were pushing everybody else to announce they're asset-backed. We have not been able to say we are asset-backed yet until the guy with golden hair came into the presidency. I don't want to elaborate on this, but I expect, at the personal level, I expect, based upon what I am reading and hearing and surmising, I expect that we will have an announcement that U.S. currency is now asset-backed. And you should, as a student of prophecy, you should recognize that is a transition. That Ellen White had it right. She said, it is not of the device. Well, putting something behind our money, it's something, all right. It's ours, but only by decree, by declaration. That's what we did with our money for 70 plus years. When all are looking forward to many years of worldly prosperity, that's the one in the New Testament. When they shall say peace and what? Prosperity.
Is that what happens now?
Yeah, that's where we're going. But it doesn't happen until January 20
What's going to
of
happen?
2018.
What's going to happen to the euro and all the other countries?
Well, we'll get there. We'll get there. I'm just asking you to consider, when you get home, you just consider, you just say, well, we'll find out if his good guesses are any good or not. By July and August, possible terrorist-related fires set intentionally in the west and northwest. Ellen White puts it this way: fire, flood, and earthquake with war and bloodshed. God is warning the inhabitants of the earth of his near approach. When she says fires, she's not talking about ordinary fire season in the west. We're talking about fire, flood, and earthquake with war and bloodshed. We're getting there. We are standing on the threshold of the crisis of the ages. In quick succession, judgments will follow, fire and flood. We'll finish out the statement by and by. Watch for increasing anarchy and rioting in many U.S. cities, an omen of things to come. Now I want to say this. For 12 to 20 years, I had the privilege of speaking repeatedly to thousands of people on the West Coast, all the way from the Mexican border right on up into Canada and Alaska. Thousands of people. I said to the folk living in Southern California, if you're not acquainted with that part of the country, it's desert. Los Angeles is desert. Oh no, they've got plenty of water. No, they don't. The water for Southern California, the water for Southern California comes from 3 states away in the Colorado River. We're using up all the water that once upon a time left some over to go into Mexico. So I said to the folk in Southern California, you folk are a disaster waiting to happen. Whether it's a terrorist incident and they cut the aqueducts and run the water off, you are dependent on water from 3 states away. There's none coming from that way. This is very likely to be cut off, whether it's a terrorist incident or an earthquake. You can't go west because that's the Pacific Ocean. So I went up a little further north in California and I said, you guys are an accident, a disaster waiting to happen. Because all those folk down there are dependent on water. And you've got some. They're going to need food, and you're the food capital of the 48 contiguous states. You are a disaster waiting to happen. We'll enlarge on that in a bit. Ere long, that's a strange word, ere long, there will be such strife and confusion in the cities that those who wish to leave them will not be able. We must be preparing for these issues. This is the light given me. This is one of dozen scores of statements which we've shared with you through the years. I just want to say that July and August and the new currency could spell the rise of the New World Order, because that new currency is a command and demand of the New World Order. So I put a big question mark. Is this the rise or birth of the New World Order? I believe it is. I believe that the new currency is an announcement to you and me and the world that it's time for the new government. You see, President Trump said, we're going to back out of this Paris Agreement. What is this climate thing all about? I'm not saying that there's no problem coming with the climate. I'm saying, what can human beings do about changing the climate of the world? Okay?
It's redistribution of wealth.
Now you got it. The whole thing is, let's create a crisis so great that we have to have a world government and we have to tax everybody on the planet. That's what this whole thing is about.
It's also about the Sunday one.
And Trump said, nah, we ain't gonna do it no more. Well, what is it he's saying no to? He's not saying we're not going to sign on the agreement. We're not going to sign on the present agreement because we ain't agreeing. Well, what is it that we ain't agreeing to? Come on. So the Chinese, who are one of the greatest polluters on the planet, what are they going to pay in the next 10 to 20 years? Nothing. What about India? What about Brazil? What about all these other countries? So we have decided, you got money, you pay. You American, you pay. And so we're supposedly signed on by the previous president for 25 billion plus. That may just be starters. Okay? It's a global tax arrangement. And we're paying the bill. So there's a new sheriff in the land. In August and September, I believe we're going to see the stock markets and the economy soaring for the moon. I believe there's going to be euphoria in the land, not just our land, but Europe. Everybody's going to come alive. Why? Because the global economy is being infused with trillions of dollars. Trillions. No, the word out today is quadrillions. You can't even count how many zeros you're talking about. Now, when we move to the fall of any year, prophetically, we need to wake up. Take note. When we move into the fall of the year on planet Earth, prophecy watchers better be watching. I believe we're going to see all kinds of good and all kinds of bad mixed together. That's just my take on it. August and September, natural disasters multiply, especially in the United States. I believe the United States is about to become the target of natural disasters, man-made disasters, all kinds of disasters. There will be heated rumors of war with North Korea. People call me every day, literally call me every day. Well, it looks like we're going to war with North Korea. I said, go back and read the verse. Rumors. Rioting is going to increase in many U.S. cities. Summertime always brings out madness, badness. When October and November come, keep your eyes focused on Basra. Oh, now we're getting serious. Tell me about Basra. Basra is the second capital of Iraq. Basra is the second ancient capital of Iraq. Basra is the focal point of Daniel's visions in chapter 8. I was at Susa, at Shushan, in the palace. And in my night visions I saw and was standing beside the river Ulai. And I saw, and I saw, and I saw. And what is described is what is going to begin taking place here, I believe in October, November, early December. The focus of the Ulai vision, Daniel chapter 8, the focus of the Ulai vision is just north of Basra. So there's going to be war sometime between here and here. War. Iran is going to make a move to come in and back up the government of Iraq, announce to the world that we are one. And there's a character. I think I got his name spelled for you here. Watch and listen for the Iraqi Shia hothead, Muqtada al-Sadr. I'm not going to go into all the history here, but this is the guy in Iraq who wants to join hands, link the two countries with Iraq and Iran. And he has his own militia, and he hates the United States with a passion. So keep your eyes and ears open. Watch for this guy to begin appearing in the news. He's got a demonic stare about him. Watch for Iranian military invasion and intervention in Iraq crossing the Hiddekel. I really ought to do that with you on the board for a moment. This is the Euphrates River. This is the Tigris River. These are the great rivers of Shinar and so forth. They merge their waters into one great river going into the Persian Gulf down here. They merge their waters into what historically can be called the Hiddekel. Tigris, Euphrates, Hiddekel. Except some historians say no, the Tigris is always the Hiddekel. It doesn't matter. There are fascinating, absolutely fascinating statements from the pen of Ellen White about the visions given to Daniel and the Hiddekel. I don't have good feelings when I think about how Adventists of all the people who need to be plumbing the depths of these prophecies and sharing them with the world, they can't even share them with one another. Now here's the Ulai. The modern name is the Karun River. It's not a great river, but it pours its waters into the Hiddekel right here, and Basra is here. Gabriel is said in Daniel chapter 8 to be standing here in Daniel's vision. He's over here at Shushan in the palace. But then the truth comes out that Gabriel is standing down here. Same river, but at the end of the river, at the widening of the Ulai. And this is where Gabriel makes the pronouncement, "Understand, O Son of Man, this vision is at the time of the end." I mean, there is prophetic evidence. This vision is at the time of the end. That's what the two dreams and two visions are all about, the time of the end. In December, it could happen in November, but I think it's more likely to take place in December. Possible war with Iran and Iraq. And of course, we're not going to just go. It says we throw him to the ground and stamp on him. And Russia and China don't intervene. There was no one to help him, and they're both allies of Iran. Throw him to the ground and stamp on him. While this war comes, there's a global financial crisis as the US dollar is broken or threatened with total devaluation, which, by the way, Ellen White talks about appreciation and depreciation. Global financial crisis possible in December. We've got 20 days in January to get to the red line. And so Daniel 8 says, and when he was strong, that's the goat from the west, when he was strong, the notable horn was shattered. And that is the word in the original, shattered. There should be mega earthquakes according to Jesus, and according to what's going on here, there should be mega earthquakes and the United States is going to be broken. Now, for years, I have believed, and this is my guesswork, for years, I have chosen to believe that just collapsing the US dollar is not enough to break the United States of America, to break the back, to break the heart, to break the spirit, to break I mean, we've had depressions before, and no. What we need to know is you know that's Florida, you know it is. I want to be sure you get the point. I'm watching the clock. Don't you watch it, I'm watching it. Down here in California, right on the Mexican border, right here, there's a place known as the Salton Sea, S-A-L-T-O-N, the Salton Sea, and it's man's stupidity and engineering that has created this destruction. But anyhow, there's the Salton Sea. The Salton Sea is there because there's a tremendous earthquake fault line that joins other major fault lines right here, just over the line into the U.S. For the last 18 to 24 months, there have been flurries of quakes in the Salton Sea. Now, to have these mini quakes and flurries of them all coming together, for years it was decided that that's good because that's letting the pressure off of the big faults. And long as we, no, it has since been discovered that these are not releasing pressure, they are putting pressure, placing pressure, building pressure on the major faults. Now, the fault here is the San Andreas. It is the major fault in California and along the West Coast until we get just up here, just north of San Francisco, and I have been there, me, myself, and I. William Record, on one of the cameras there, knows all about the place where this great fault running through San Francisco Bay, just north of San Francisco, parts company with the land and goes out into the Pacific. Breaks itself into two evil heads. These pressure points are being observed by satellite, by ground-based. They can put a laser in and put a reflector over here, and they can tell if the ground moves a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of an inch. And when they see a shake down here, way down here on the Mexican border, and within a few hours they see the tremors coming up this fault line, they say, "Ooh, this is not looking good." So there are headlines, and I have some of them for you, which we'll give you before you go. We have headlines warning all of the inhabitants of the West and Northwest to beware that the evidence is building that the big one could come at any moment, at any time. If you read what it says, cut the tree down, break off its branches, scatter the leaves, and shake off his fruit. This quake, this fault line, runs right through the heart of the Central Valley, where fruit is grown, and nuts, all right? If you shake 8.9, 9.9, You can't even begin to imagine what an 8.2 quake looks like, feels like, and the damage that it's doing. These major faults, including the Hayward, including now over to, what's the Yellowstone cauldron? It's heating. It's heaving. All of these are connected. All of them are signaling unwanted things. All of them. So Ellen White sums this up, agreeing with Jesus' words. There will be famine, there will be war, there will be rumors, there will be great earthquakes. I believe that's where we're broken. There's the breaking of the power. The country is going to be split down the West Coast. And you're going to, if the United States was bankrupt and had financial problems, it's all over. If you read what it says in the book, we are going to be broken, we're going to be shattered, our eagle wings are gone. Our lion's heart is gone. The bear is going to rise, do his stuff. The leopard is going to rise and fly his kite. You and I are coming to the kingdom for such a time as this. You have friends, you may have family out here. We have thousands multiplied friends out there. And I have this empty feeling in the base of my stomach, the pit of my stomach, that these folk are sitting ducks. And who am I to say, where do you run? Where do you go? Ellen White makes the statement time after time, we should be preparing for these issues. So this is how I want to try and put this together if I can. The Los Angeles Times, that's the banner. June the 14th. What's the date today? Los Angeles Times, June the 14th. Signs of past California mega quakes show danger of the big one on the San Andreas Fault. I'm just going to read just a few lines right here. This is pages and pages. You can go online, look it up, and really see they have these images in color and moving and showing you how the pressure is moving along the faults and who gets it first. For example, if you're in the Loma Linda area, okay? The quake's going to start down in the Salton Sea at the base. That's the place that the quake's going to start. By the time it moves up, and it takes several minutes to get up to San Bernardino and Loma Linda and right up there, as soon as it hits that area, familiar to some of us, as soon as the quake hits there, and it's a mega quake, it's no little tinker toy. All the lines of communication between there and Los Angeles are broken. There's no more communication, no more water lines, no more rail lines, no more highways, no more telephone lines. Towers, cell phone towers, down. And the quake hasn't gotten to LA yet. It takes a few more minutes to get to LA. Oh yes, right here. So you are going to be breaking to pieces lines of communication between people. I'm at work, I want to call my wife and my family. I need water in my house. I'm going to get in my car and get my family and we're going to leave. Good luck. When you're talking about a mega quake, 8+ on the Richter scale, All of these things that we take for granted are gone. They are gone. Some estimates are that if a superquake like this occurs along the West Coast, there'll be 100,000 people die. It started 1 million.
It's 20 million last week.
I'm not going to read all of this. I'm going to challenge you to go online and read it. California earthquake experts believe what happens at the San Gorgonio Pass during a major rupture of the San Andreas Fault could have wide-ranging implications for the region and beyond. They worry a huge quake could sever lifelines at the pass for weeks or months, cutting Southern California off from major highway and rail routes as well as sources of power, oil, and gas. Southern California cities are surrounded by mountains, making access through narrow passes like San Gorgonio essential. Let's just take a look right here for a moment. Get our feet down on the ground. Here's the Salton Sea. Can you read that from where you are, Salton Sea? Here's the epicenter, start of the earthquake. Now, if you were online, they show you from as it moves up the fault. It's in moving color. Here's Riverside, Anaheim, LA. It's going to break out here, San Bernardino, Loma Linda. This is the breaking point. The large epicenter. Why? Because there are 3 to 5 major faults that come together right here. And we're going up the San Andreas up through the middle of the Central Valley, parts of it over into San Francisco Bay. I'm just going to scroll right here. Here's one offset of the San Andreas. 35 feet when the quake rumbled. It shifted 35 feet from here to there. Moved. Now this is 2 slides that if you were watching online, this is the quake moving up, heating, breaking. Here it is making its way all the way across. That's not only the movement of the quake, but it's showing you, yes, it's showing you how far reaching the shaking is going to do incredible damage. Just everything down. Brother Wheeling, every time you come, you bring us bad news. No. 30 plus years ago, we said, look, folks, it's nice to come together in a prophecy seminar. We're all interested. We should be interested. But we have specific instruction about a work that is to be done in spite of what is coming on the land. And so we have for 36, 38 now years been printing millions of Christ-centered, truth-centered publications, millions and millions, and scattering them around the world. Literally 167 countries of the world, 53 plus million publications, dozens of languages. Now I'm praying, please listen, I've been praying for 5 years now. I'm praying that when this currency reset occurs, God is going to give us millions of dollars to print hundreds of millions of publications. It looks possible. It looks possible. Did you hear what I said?
Hey, we got in.
Lord, we need a break. We need to be refreshed here for a little while. We need to set our minds on more mundane things for a little while. We need the presence of your Spirit. Jesus said, where 2 or more are gathered in my name, I'm there. We believe that. I want to thank you for these folk who have come today. Bless them. Bless us. Bless our families. It's time for you to work, O Lord. It's time. Thank you now for the blessing of food to eat. Thank you for strength. We thank you for the sure words of prophecy. We pray that these things will awaken and stir our minds and hearts. Help us to understand what we are to do, not only in the cause of Christ, but to do for our families. Thank you in the name of Jesus. Amen and amen.